But the really fun thing is they've got a conference in North America and a conference in Europe. Again, privacy is global. Hi everyone, welcome back to Privacy Professional Training. Today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the ISACA platform. I want to show you guys what the ISACA platform looks like, where you can access resources depending on the certification that you're taking. Now, ISACA offers both privacy and cybersecurity certifications. Personally, I've only taken the CDPSE for ISACA, but I want to show you guys anyway where I look when I'm deciding what type of certification I personally am going to take, and then also where you can access resources to give you insight into what the cert looks like. So we're just going to sign into my profile. I want to show you guys what it looks like when you log in. So whether or not you're already an ISACA member or you're thinking about it, you should take a look at the website first, because there's a lot of resources that you can access that are free before deciding whether or not to take any of these certifications. So I've just logged in. And basically when you log in and you're already a member, your view should look like this. You should have the My ISACA section. I'm going to click on my certification so you guys can see. You can see my name, and then you can see the certification that I have. And then you can also see what's due. So in order to have the professional membership with ISACA, it costs $135 for me. Now, depending on the certification that you take, it might be a different amount. Now, because I'm in the greater Washington, D.C. area, you can also see the chapter balance that's due. Now, both of these dues are, you can see there's 3 of them. Membership dues, this is for ISACA. This is for the chapter that I'm part of, which is Greater Washington, D.C. chapter. And then for my actual certification, I have to pay a different fee. So the total that I personally will pay is $220 because I have one certification through ISACA. Now, ISACA actually offers many different certifications. You can see all of them here. And again, I talked about how they have security and then they also have privacy ones. Because I work in the privacy space, this was the one that I got, the Certified Data Privacy Solutions Engineer. But if you are in a hybrid role, let's say, for example, you have a client and you provide both security and privacy advisory to them, you could consider taking this one, the Certified Information Security Manager. And this is one of the ones that I definitely have on my list that I'm planning to take. So I'm definitely going to talk about this on this channel because obviously we talk about all things privacy here. Even though I do privacy work, there is a lot of overlap between the advisory that I give in the privacy space and then security. And you guys saw this when I talked about how I also took an exam through the ISE Squared that is predominantly a security exam. But because of how the products are structured and how technology is moving along these days, cybersecurity, security, and privacy, they all work hand in hand. And ISACA has lots of different certifications. I just wanted to show you guys what I currently have. I think another really interesting one that I'm seeing a lot of people getting in my space is the Advanced in AI Audit. I see people are taking this certification as well. Again, privacy, cybersecurity, and artificial intelligence, they all have overlap because how the products work and the processes involved involve both personal data, assets, which cybersecurity covers, and then if there is an artificial component to the product or system or application, then there's going to be an AI component to it as well. So this is another very popular one that I've been seeing and is definitely on my radar. I want us to go through the actual platform and what my view looks like. Now, depending on the certification you've taken, your view might be different and so will your dues. The dues I pay are on an annual basis. So I think going forward, unless these go up, at least for 2026, the fees that I'll have to pay is $220, and these do tend to go up. So that's something that you should also know in advance. Let's take a look at membership status. So you can see when I earned this, you can see my name and you can see my ID number, and you can see that I've been a member since May 3rd, 2022. This was around the time that I took the exam. But I told you guys on the channel that in order to gain the CDPSE designation, like these letters after your name, you have to have been working for 3 years continuously in the privacy space. So I finally got round to being able to completing my application in 2025, which is why I didn't get the CDPSE certification designation until 2025. I had taken the exam in 2022. So something you guys should know about the local chapter. This really helps if you want to get involved with different individuals that perhaps have the same certification as you. It may not be that they have the CDPSE. It may be that they have one of the other credentials that ISACA has to offer. So that's something you should take into consideration. Depending on your industry, ISACA has a broader spectrum of certifications than the International Association of Privacy Professionals, because IAPP is predominantly regarding privacy. ISACA covers a whole gamut and spectrum of different industries, so that's something you should also know. But because they had the privacy one, that's why I went ahead and took this one. The other one that's on my radar that I told you guys that I'm planning to take in the future is this one. And the other one that's very popular amongst other privacy professionals that I've seen is this ISACA Advanced in AI Audit. Now, I think this is a relatively new exam. We're not going to talk too much about it in this test, but if you are in the artificial intelligence space and there's going to be an overlap between the duties that you do in privacy and AI, this may be one that you want to consider taking. I don't know how new this is, but we're not going to take too much of a look at this. I want us to look at the privacy certification. So before I started taking this exam, and I'm actually going to show you my store to show you the resources that I purchased. So when you're thinking about taking the Certified Data Privacy Solutions Engineer exam, you can see that they have an exam candidate guide, which I think anybody taking this exam should download. But you can also see the view all study materials. So ISACA does offer materials that you can use to study for the test. I'll show you my store to show you which of the ones I purchased, but I purchased the digital copy of the official review, and I also purchased the questions. Now, I think these questions are new. You can see here that they say 3rd edition. When I took the test, I'm not sure that it was the 3rd edition that I purchased, but we can check that in a minute. But if you're considering taking this test, you can check for the resources. And I personally think the best way to study is to look at all the resources you have available to you. You don't have to focus exclusively on ISACA materials. I think I talked to you guys about other platforms that you can utilize, like people create flashcards on a platform called Quizlet. Quizlet is fantastic. Other people have taken this exam. They're in their 3rd edition of it. So you already know there was a 1st and 2nd edition. And what that demonstrates to me is that they've changed the questions that were originally offered, because privacy is ever evolving. It would be unlikely that the test that I took in 2022 is the one you're going to be facing in 2025, because since that time, the data protection laws have changed and how businesses are processing personal data has evolved as well. That's one of the reasons you might see this edition. It may be that you're able to purchase previous editions, because the foundation of privacy, things like notice, transparency, consent, those are going to be recurring themes in every single exam. So it may be that you want to purchase the new edition. It may be that you find the older edition, but I would take a look on all the other platforms like Quizlet for the flashcards. And then you can also take a look. I'll leave a description of the URL that I'm thinking about below. But it's basically where you can find old study materials if you're looking for free things first. Let's say you don't want to purchase this. And you can see the pricing is different too. There's a member pricing and a non-member pricing. You guys just saw recently my current platform. I am a member. So if I was to do another exam like this AAIA or the CISM, the pricing that I would pay for the books would be different. Now, I want us to take a look at other resources, because like what they do on ISACA is they have that exam candidate booklet, which gives you an overview of how many hours the exam might be, what are the requirements you might have, and things like that. Those resources are really invaluable. Before you even come to the store, you should go onto the actual credential itself, and then you should go to view the study material and view exam candidate guide. And this is something that you should download. So you can see here below, they have the ISACA certification exam candidate guide, and they've got it in lots of different languages. So I'm just going to click the English one. What I want to show you guys is what you should be writing down in your notes when you're reviewing this. So depending on the test you're going to take, we're only going to look at the privacy one. So I'm just going to scroll down, and there's some information that you can view here, like code of ethics, overview, etc. But depending on the test you're going to take, let's look at the privacy one. This is really useful. I'm just going to scroll in a little bit because I want you guys to see what I'm talking about. So when you're deciding which exam you're going to look at, you can see the description of the test. This is designed for those experienced in governance, architecture, and the life cycle of data privacy at a technical level. Now, I'm going to highlight this because I want to talk about the life cycle of data privacy at a technical level. When you're talking to different clients or business units or departments, particularly product or marketing, you need to be able to understand the life cycle of the privacy that they use and what types of tools they're using when it comes to personal data. Now, it may be that you're not an engineer. I personally am not an engineer, but when I'm talking and providing advisory to clients, I need to be able to understand their products. And when I talk to other engineers that are creating the products or optimizing the products, I need to be able to understand what they're saying on a technical level, which is why I took this test. Right? I understand it from a legal perspective, but the legal perspective ties into the technical perspective. If you have clients that create products on an annual basis or even on a semi-annual basis, the technology is becoming far more sophisticated. You're going to need to be able to understand what everybody's talking about, like the software developers, if it is like it's an application, or even the engineers that create a physical product. Because I'll give you an example. Let's say for something like a baby monitor. If you provide advisory to a client who creates baby monitors, there's a lot of sophistication in these baby monitors now. They can record what the baby's doing. They can monitor all sorts of different information related to the baby. And when we look at personal data, we're looking at data belonging to an identifiable individual, which includes a baby, right? The technicalities of that baby monitor is something that you need to understand as a privacy professional in order to give good advisory. Hey, you need to put this in place. You need to make sure that the parents are aware of this and that, etc. So that's why I took this test. And I told you guys about the experience. For the CDPSE, you need 3 or more years of experience in data privacy governance, privacy architecture, and or data lifecycle. Make sure you look at this whenever you're taking any of the tests, because sometimes there is experience required. And we talked about this for the CISSP exam, and we'll be looking at my ISC squared platform in the next video. But basically, sometimes you need experience. Now, for a lot of the IAPP exams, you don't need experience, but for the CDPSE you do, and for the CISSP you do. Now, let's take a look at domain. Privacy governance, 20%. Privacy risk management and compliance. Now, I'll tell you something that I do for my own personal tests. When I look at these domains, I look at what my strengths are. Now, we're looking at these 4 domains, right? The strengths I currently have, or before I took this test, were the privacy risk management and compliance. I could do that with my eyes closed. Data lifecycle management, again, this is a strong point for me, as is privacy governance. Now you can see 40% of this test was privacy engineering. This is very specific and very technical. Now I come from a legal background, and I've talked about this before with privacy. You don't need to come from a legal background. There are going to be privacy professionals where this is their strong point. For me, it's the first 3 because this is like more related to like legal advisory. But for the privacy engineering, 40% of the test is this. So when I'm looking at the test, I always take a look at what the exam candidate guide looks like. I know that I'm going to have to study a lot for this test when I see privacy engineering makes up 40% of the questions. All right, and then we can also see the time. So the other thing that I do before I take a test is I will look at how many hours I'm given. So you can see here you have 120 multiple choice questions and you got 3.5 hours. So you should be mapping out how long each question is going to take you. If you have 210 minutes for 120 questions, that gives you a little bit over a minute per question. So you're going to need to know the material very well. And if you're like me and you're from a legal background, you can already see 40% of your test is related to engineering. So you know that you're going to need to give more effort to this test depending on how many of these you already know. And if you're brand new to privacy, then you already know that you're going to need to spend an immense amount of time on these questions. So this will also give you an idea of the amount that you're going to pay for the test. You can see that there's a difference in price, right? When I knew I was going to take this test, I became a member because it's almost a $200 difference if you're a member or if you're a non-member. So maybe take that into consideration as well. So to me, when I did this, you can see that the membership fees for ISACA are $135. If I add $135 to $575, it's still cheaper than $760. So it's within your interest to become a member as opposed to being a non-member and then paying this fee for the test. And then you can scroll down and click these links. Now, I just wanted us to take a look at this because the CDPSE is different in that ISACA has different requirements for this privacy exam. Let's go back to the platform. So you can also see details. If you want to do remote proctoring, you can. I talked about in my video, the CDPSE, how I passed it. I never take exams at home. I like going into the test centers to take them because I like the pressure. I like the pressure that it gives me. And also being comfortable in my house and taking a test. I don't know if I would have the same level of like pressure that is forced upon you when you have to drive to the test center and take the test. Okay, now I want to talk about training and events. I talked about this for the IAPP platform when we reviewed it, but you can see all of these conferences. I love that ISACA has a student summit, because maybe you're considering going into the field of privacy or security. You can attend the student summit. I personally didn't. But the really fun thing is they've got a conference in North America and a conference in Europe. Again, privacy is global. So if you're thinking about joining this field, it might be within your interest. Maybe you're not at the stage to take the test, but you can attend a conference in some capacity and learn from other individuals in this space to see whether it's something that you would enjoy being a part of. So the last thing we're going to look at is store. I'm going to try and see if we can find the resources that I personally have purchased. Oh, let's go to CPs. We talked about this for the other privacy exam. In order for you to maintain your certification, my certification here is the CDPSE, you have to do CPEs, and that is continuing privacy education. And if you want to learn how to obtain the CPEs, you can click this link here. You do not currently have any CPE certificates issued by ISACA. So I currently do not. But if you are an individual and you want to know how often do I need to maintain my continuing privacy education, you can see what their policy is here. And make sure that you make the distinction between the CPE policy for ISACA and the CPE policy for IAPP. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to walk through this platform. Each designation body has a very specific way that it offers its privacy certifications. So if you are planning to do multiple certifications, maybe you're planning to do the 6 that I've done, or you're planning to do different certifications, then you should make sure that you understand what each body requires, because they each have different requirements. And if you go to a conference, you can earn up to 32 CPs, which is really good. So they've listed all the ways that you personally can earn certifications. And I think one that's unique to ISACA is these journal quizzes, because IAPP doesn't have the same offering as a journal quiz. So again, make sure you're taking a look at what's the requirement for you before you take the test and after you take the test. Because in order for you to maintain this designation you have after your name, you have to continue learning in the privacy space because it changes all the time. Let's look at learning access. I want to show you guys the resources I personally purchased. Let's see. Maybe it's in the store. It might be in order history. Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, so I'm not able to find it for this particular video. If you want some more insights into the resources that I purchased, leave a comment below and I will share in a different video. But basically, when I showed you guys the resources that you can purchase for the test, those are the resources I purchased when I took my exam, and they allowed me to pass the test and get this designation after my name. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you're considering taking this certification I took, I would love to speak with you. If you have any questions about ISACA generally, I would love to be able to help you answer any of the questions that I know. Again, I've only taken one of the certifications and it's a privacy certification. So if you are planning to take this test, I'd love to speak with you, and I will see you in another video.